Hi guys, Chris here with Super Savvy Travelers. We are in Scalea today and we're on the phone with Nick Metta because guess what? Something really important came up with regards to Italian citizenship. Who can get it, who cannot. It's very different. There's a lot of chaos and a lot of scariness surrounding it. So Nick is here to allay your fears and lay everything out for you so you know exactly what's going on. So hi Nick, how are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So tell me, this is kind of a big surprise. I didn't even see this coming. So tell me what's going on with this citizenship thing.
Sure. So essentially, the current majority that is in the parliament has been discussing for a couple of years now how to resolve the problem of what they consider a problem of so many Italians living overseas. And so one of the ideas was to restrict further Italian citizenship eligibility.
Mm.
And so they have been working tirelessly pretty much since they got elected. And on Friday, there was a press conference. The Italian cabinet had a meeting, and among other things, they decided that the people who can be eligible for Italian citizenship can do that only if their parent or grandparent were Italians who left Italy to go somewhere else. So you can only apply for Italian citizenship by blood through your parent or grandparent. You can no longer apply for Italian citizenship by blood through your grandparent or great grandparent or even great great grandparent.
Okay. Now, so that changes. It used to be, how far back did it used to go? I mean, did it just as long as you could go back and trace it, that was good
So that's
enough?
Yeah, so that's pretty good questions. So basically, yes, it goes all the way back to the mid 1800s, so 1862, 1866, right when the Italian Republic was actually the Italian Italy was unified,
Hmm.
and at that point, whomever was alive at that point was an Italian citizen. So you could have had at that point someone who was in his or her 70s or 80s, and that person was your first ancestor, if you will. However, usually right now the rule of thumb or the way it worked until last week, until this new law entered into force, you looked at the last person who left Italy and migrated overseas. So if most of our clients apply through their grandparents or great grandparents, great great grandparents. So if you, however, have to apply now or have pending applications or you're working on applications and your ancestors of origin, let's say, is not your grandparent, but great grandparents or farther back, unfortunately, are no longer eligible under the letter of this executive order. Essentially, in Italy it's called law decree,
Hmm.
but it's actually an executive order, meaning the government, without consulting with anyone, just comes up with this law by urgency, and then this law is enforced and is enforceable. It's valid and it's immediately valid. However, it needs to be confirmed by the parliament within 60 days, and if it
Okay.
is not, it will just be as it will not be law anymore.
Okay. So for the time being, though, for the next could be 60 days, that's in force. So it just means basically, if your grandparents were Italian citizens, you can come get citizenship, but anybody before that, no, right?
Correct,
Ooh,
correct. And so,
ooh,
and
that's
basically,
a
so
lot.
if you had an appointment scheduled
Yeah,
to go visit the consulate today, this
yeah.
week, next week, in 2 weeks, or at the township, and you are, purchased a home in Italy or renting a home in Italy, and you were, put it together, the last documents and stuff like that, and you had an appointment, and you were ready to go. You have your flight booked, and you were ready to go to Italy, ready to file your application in court, or because this affects also the 1948 cases, the ones where you apply for citizenship through your grandmother or actually your great grandmother or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you did not start the process by the end of March 27th, they're going to refuse to take in your application. And that will be at the comune, at the municipality level in Italy, or
Yeah.
at the consulate where you live. In court, you can still file it. You can still
Yeah.
file it because at the end of the day, a judge will decide. But it is very possible that there might be additional you would have to bring up additional arguments, additional legal ground to potentially fight not just the 1948 rule, but also this executive order.
Okay, so let's talk about that 1948 rule. That was the rule that said you cannot use your maternal line in order to get citizenship. I have a friend who wants to get her citizenship, and her grandmother was an Italian citizen, so she's unable to do that still, right?
Well, if it is the grandmother, she can still go through the court with the 1948 case as if that law doesn't affect her.
Oh,
But
okay.
if it was her great grandmother, then yes.
Okay, okay, okay. So let me just get this straight in my mind. So if somebody has a lineage through their grandmother, they can still come in. I mean, is that
They can
1948
still,
thing still in
yeah.
place?
So, yeah. So, if the lineage through the great grandmother, let's say,
Yeah.
is such that the great grandmother gave birth to the grandparent prior to 1948.
Oh,
Essentially, you know what I mean? That's because before 1948, they didn't have entitlement. Those women did not have entitlement to pass citizenship to their children.
okay. That
It
makes
was
sense.
just men who could do that.
Yeah.
So if you find a 1948 case where the person in question was your great grandmother, unfortunately, a judge might disqualify you not because of the 1948, but because of this new government executive order.
Ah,
So if you have all the paperwork in order, you would have to address two injustices, let's say. One injustice would be the 1948 discrimination, gender discrimination, and the other one would be whatever legal ground you think that you have to fight the executive order. And there is some. I'll be happy to discuss it with you.
okay. Okay. Good. Good. So I think I've got the 1948 thing figured out. Okay. Yeah. Well, tell us, what are some of the remedies? What are some of the workarounds? We know that you're always about the workarounds.
Yeah, so this is obviously very fresh. This happened just a couple of days ago, and now is going to be brought to discussion in the parliament. I've seen already some senators opposing it very, very forcefully,
Mhm.
and so I expect it's not going to be necessarily a walk in the park to have it passed.
Mhm.
However, obviously, we need to see when the parliament discusses an executive order, like they call it, as I said, a law decree.
Mhm.
Decree. When they pass it, they might pass it with amendments.
Ah.
So at this point, defining a precise strategy might be premature
Mhm.
because we don't know what the ultimately what the law will be. Many times, these type of urgent decrees are significantly changed.
Yes.
However, let's say it goes through with the same type of shape and form as it is today. There are several legal grounds to challenge it, in our opinion, and in the opinion of other lawyers we talked with, and who also are in the same field
Mm.
of assisting people with Italian citizenship applications. So something extremely important to keep in mind here is that when you apply for Italian citizenship through the bloodline, they call it jure sanguinis, right?
Right.
You are not applying to get Italian citizenship. You are applying to be recognized as an Italian citizen, meaning you are asking Italian government, please acknowledge that I was born an Italian citizen.
Mhm.
So it doesn't in our opinion, it is not possible to tell an Italian citizen, I cannot acknowledge your citizenship from today, from yesterday, or for whatever, because you were born in Italian citizenship, and citizenship cannot be essentially revoked or
Right.
denied.
Right.
Um, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is different when it is citizenship by naturalization, citizenship by marriage.
Hmm.
And they actually, by the way, they are discussing changing the parameters also for those type of citizenship
Wow.
applications. And you know, for marriage, for example, now they already have prepared the bill of law that they will discuss.
Mm.
But basically, they cannot they can change the requirements for people who don't have a status yet. But
Yeah.
Italians who are applying for recognition already are Italians
Yeah.
for all purposes.
Yeah.
So, and that is also one of the reasons why you can apply from Italy if you want to, because you go to the township, to the comune, and you ask the township, hey, I'm an Italian citizen and I can prove it. So please give me residency without the need of a visa or immigration permit
Mm.
because I'm an Italian. You just need to review the paperwork and acknowledge that status. So that is um, one macro main point of argument. And
Hmm.
then there are many under that also fall under the same category. There is the discrimination, like white people who were born at the same time, all the requirements and all the exact same profile would be treated in a different way just because there's this change in the law if they were born with the same entitlement. So there would be a discrimination, and that's obviously wouldn't be appropriate. And then there are also people who have invested significant amount of time and they have got an appointment and they have also set in motion, plans and life plans perhaps
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And they were just waiting for the appointment. And because of the delay of the consulate, they haven't been able to go through. So, but
Oh.
those arguments would be less strong in court. I've seen people saying, "Oh, that's people build their life or their life plans around that." Well, that's unfortunately, that's not necessarily going to stick. But the
Mm.
status, like being born as an Italian citizen status,
Yeah.
that is probably the strongest one. So that's why we are telling people, look at your profile, because the law says, this executive order especially says, if you already filed the application by March 27th at
Hmm.
midnight, like the end of March 27th, you're good to continue under the previous legislation.
Okay. Okay.
So that the very first, so people who applied, who filed it, they're good. People who were in the process of filing it, meaning they were preparing the documents, so they had everything, and they were ready to submit the application. Obviously, they will not take you in. I
Hmm.
recommend uh, wait for the legislation. Some people are saying just file it in court, which you could, but the legislation might be so different. When they convert the executive order into law, it might be so different that I wouldn't advise filing a lawsuit based on legislation that it is not going to last. Also, because very likely the very first hearing when the judge will hear you will be when the decree will already be converted into law, because the hearing will be set in 3-4 months, the first hearing. So in three,
Uh,
4 months, we'll know what's going to be. So
yeah.
you can ask the judge at that point to adjust your motion requests. And so you could do that too. So you could file a claim now under the current legislation because you don't want to spend time.
Mhm.
And then also because, according to some reputable, scholars, it is possible that the law might say, well, let's do this, let's do that. People who have applied by now are safe. And however, in our opinion, that is kind of a moot point because we doubt that townships and consulates are going to accept any applications that doesn't comply with the law decree right now, because it
Okay.
would be against the law, right?
Sure. Sure.
So the only option would be for applications done through the court. So yeah, so our recommendation is wait to see it through, to see how it goes through the parliament and how it gets converted. And once it is converted, most likely, if you have Italian citizenship entitlement through your great grandparent or farther back, you will have, in our opinion, and most likely we need to see the law, but most likely we will have an option to file a Italian citizenship recognition through the court, which will be very similar to filing Italian citizenship recognition through 1948 case, which means providing the judge with all the document as if you had in front of you the Italian consulate or the Italian municipality representative.
Okay, okay, good. That brings me to a good question. How successful, percentage-wise, were people when they came up and filed a lawsuit against the 1948 case? I mean, what percentage of people actually were successful in challenging that?
That's a very good question. So the 1948 case, it was based on a judgment by the Constitutional Court. So Constitutional Court is basically almost like the equivalent of the Supreme Court in the US. And basically, when you think that a law is in conflict with constitutional rights, you can take it to a special court. And you can ask the special court that oversees the constitutional application throughout the country, right? The constitutional principles being enforced properly throughout the country. So you go to this court and you say, hey, court, this law, in my opinion, is in conflict with this principle that is written in the Constitution. So if you have a constitutional court decision saying that piece of legislation is in conflict with the Constitution and therefore should not be observed, and it is to be considered with overruled. So that piece of legislation, to the extent that has been overruled by the Constitutional Court, is like doesn't apply. However, unless you have the parliament correcting that piece of legislation, it will still create a glitch in the system. So you will still have to go through a court to acknowledge that that law doesn't apply to you because it's against the Constitution. You bring in the constitutional decision, Constitutional Court decision. So when there was the first judgment in front of the Constitutional Court, then at that point, with that judgment, people started filing applications through the regular court saying that piece of legislation was declared to be against the Constitution, so give me citizenship. And judges have consistently approved those cases or ruled in favor of applicants consistently, so much so that, don't forget, you are suing the government, the state, actually, the Italian Republic. And the Italian Republic lawyers will file a brief saying, we have nothing to say against the claim and what the claimant is asking for. We are not filing any opposing brief. We are not challenging it in any manner. Please do not charge us damages and legal cost refunds. And judges will not apply legal cost refunds because the Italian government is not fighting this. It's up to the parliament to remove that obstacle. However, since you achieve the same result, it's not through the comune, it's through the court. At the end of the day, you achieve your result and you don't get any money for it in terms of legal cost refunds.
Okay, that really clears up a lot. Okay, wonderful. So basically, the people whose grandmother it was the one. You have to go through this extra process, but it's achievable.
Yeah, we have never had a case that was rejected. We never heard of any case that was rejected. The only chance that you might have a case rejected by a judge is when a judge doesn't have all the paperwork in order, when you don't file consistent documents, when you file paperwork that might be lacking something, like you forget to include a marriage certificate or a death certificate or something that actually confirms the connection between you and the ancestor. So at that point, but that is not longer the merit of the entitlement or the it is about the merit of your citizenship connection to your ancestor. It's not the entitlement to get it because of your ancestor was a woman. But on that side, there has been consistent approval or consistent judgments in favor of the claimants, basically. I've never heard of any unfavorable outcome.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, that's good to know because I've known of people that said, "Well, I'm not going to try because this and that," and I think it will be good news for these people that it's very easy to overturn that and get that taken care of. Now, I have a question that probably calls for speculation on your part, but what problem is the Italian government trying to solve by changing this law? To me, I go, "What the heck is that about? What do you think they're trying to
Yeah.
solve?"
So actually, they were pretty open about it.
Mm,
And as I said, I've been following whenever they discuss topics that affect our clients, we have a pretty close eye to their discussions that they happen many times in the open. So about this, they've been discussing, as I said, for a couple of years since this new government has been was elected. So the problem is that there are a ton of Italians overseas who have voting rights. There are
oh,
right now, yes, there are right now something like 6 million, I believe, Italians outside of Italy. So it's more than 10% of the entire Italian population.
oh,
And so, if you think that they basically have expressed the concern of Italians living overseas who have very little to do with Italy, to put it their way, or very little connection or implications with or consequences with how the elections go,
right.
who might sway an election, especially if it is a close one in certain situations.
Hmm.
So, also with respect to referenda, to whenever there are general elections, things like that. The number of Italians overseas in the past 10 years, I believe, they issued a report, has grown by 50%. It used to be 4
Wow.
million, and now it's 6.1 million, something like that.
Wow.
So in the past 10 or 15 years, something like that, it's been crazy. So they are extremely concerned. This increase of Italians overseas is going to affect create almost an undue interference in general elections,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
B also it is kind of Italy. According to them, I don't know all the legislations of European countries, but according to the Italian government, Italy has one of the most extensive eligibility system or had
Hmm.
because there was no limit to how far back you can go to
Mm.
claim citizenship. So in Europe, apparently, according to the Italian government, the European Union was not particularly happy with the fact that many people would apply for Italian citizenship and then would be entitled to go work anywhere within the EU.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
so these two are the main concerns that they have tried, they express being the reason why they are tightening up the rules to apply for Italian citizenship, immigration and politics.
Okay, that makes total sense. But you can see the logic in that. I mean, somebody who has no skin in the game whatsoever is actually voting, and a lot of people are, and it could be very disruptive, and they're not subject to the results or the outcomes that they help create. So that's legit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And
So,
and there is also another thing, Chris. If you think about it, it's not like in the US where when you are a citizen, you have to file a tax return, regardless where you live. In
mhm.
Italy, when you become an Italian citizen and you live overseas, effectively you only have entitlement and very little obligation,
Yeah.
very obligations. And so it becomes, that is the other point that they brought up, becomes a huge burden on Italian consulates
Mhm.
and Italian offices that have to handle these applications, or even just Italian consulates having to deal with passports renewals and documents preparation and services. And so, once again, in exchange of anything, pretty much. So, yeah, these are the common reasons they bring up.
Yeah, yeah, that actually makes sense because, coming in with just a vacuum of information, you're just like, what is this all about? But no, I can see the concerns on that whole thing. So, okay, well, I think, basically what if I were somebody in those shoes, and I haven't filed my application yet, I would just sit and chill and see where all the cookie crumble, where all the cookie crumbs fall. What's that? I don't know, to see how everything shakes out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So these also, some clients who are processing the collection of documents. What we are telling people, if you are in the process of getting these vital records, birth certificates, marriage certificate, apostille, translation, stuff like that, depending on where you are in the process, it might not be a bad idea to just keep going almost like as if nothing had happened. Obviously, if you have 15 certificates that you have to get certified translation, you might want to hold on that because
Sure,
that's expensive.
sure.
However, if you're applying for documents through offices and vital record offices, my recommendation is keep going because, in our opinion, there's going to be pretty strong argument that you have a case in court,
Mhm.
um, and almost this might turn into another gift to Italian citizens, like the 1948 cases.
Mhm.
And you might ask, why a gift? Because people who have a 1948 case, usually when we tell them, they are so excited when we tell them, okay, but there is also this option for you and they say, oh, I don't want to go through court. We tell them that A is absolutely successful always, but
Mhm.
also B, they don't have to wait 3 years for the Italian consulate appointment. They don't
Ah,
have to rent an apartment in Italy, move tickets and all that. There's disruption, immigration permit. You just sign a power of attorney from your home country, FedEx all the documents to your lawyer's office, and they file it in court. You don't have
oh,
to do anything else. So
wow.
that's why I said it's a gift because it removes entirely the logistic challenge.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
cost is pretty similar at the end of the day. So
Wow.
actually, it's exactly the same. You pay the same fees to the consulate, to the court, or to the comune. And if you use a service, um, they are comparable if you go through court or through consulate or commune. Obviously, if you wanted to do yourself, it would be free,
Yeah,
but many times not successful the first day. But
yeah.
first try.
That's what I've
But
heard.
yeah, yeah. So this might become another gift to, and also there is another thing that we have seen. There are some people who actually are going to told us that they're going to hurry up because it is very possible that they did this in a rush,
Yeah.
and it is very possible that they might create a transitory term, as they've done many times. Even for the, I don't know if you remember, there was a tax program um, for people for new Italian residents,
Mhm.
and they decided, okay, whomever become a resident by the end of the year, or even with Brexit, whomever lives in Italy is registered, as an Italian resident by the end of the year. So it is very possible they might do something like that, and
Uh,
that's going to create a huge wave of applications by
yeah,
that deadline. So that's why we are telling people, keep going with your certificates. That
yeah.
the time consuming part is not the translation or the apostille, is actually acquire the document. So keep going, invest another, I don't know, 20, 30, $40, whatever it is that you need to invest to get those certificates, because it might be possible there might be certain window of time that they might open to say, okay, whomever files it by that time, because that's what they did when the law changed in the past, that you had to renounce your Italian citizenship to acquire another citizenship. They told you you can, when you become, when the child becomes 18, after, within the 19th year of the life of age, you can claim it back. So they might give you a certain specific deadline to do this or lose it. So that would make everyone equal, and so that will fix it. And so before that happens, as many people who are kind of half ready might rush it and make it in.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that makes total sense. Wow, wow. And that gift you talk about would be significant because when we talk to our clients, and they want to buy a house, but they have the residency thing, and then they got to come over, they got to get the rental contract, they got to be there for a year, all of the be there and wait for the police to show up and check on them, make sure they're there. It's huge. So that might be something. In fact, I'm thinking of one client right now that might be very happy to hear about that.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah, that might be the silver lining in this.
Yeah, right. Okay, great. Is there any more on that you wanted to say? It sounds to me like you guys have got it all sort of buttoned up for the time being, and you're going to stay on top of it. And as soon as things change, maybe we have another interview and let everybody know
Sure,
how everything shakes out.
that sounds like a good plan. Yes, definitely.
Okay, okay, well, that's wonderful. I mean, initially when you brought this up, I was freaking out a little bit myself, but now I'm kind of like, okay, well, it's just another thing that happens, and we just ride over the bumps and keep on
Yes,
going.
exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. This is something that shouldn't upset people too much.
Right.
And there's going to be an army of lawyers ready to take it to the next level, should the need be, should the parliament, go in the same direction.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, good. Okay. Well, super. Well, thank you for bringing this up today. We were going to talk about something totally different, but this came up and it's vitally important for so many people. So we appreciate you being right on the cutting edge with us and giving us all the data as soon as you hear about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure, Chris.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks a lot.